What is up, you guys? Today's tutorial is all about making this super cute 3D gnome tumbler. This particular tumbler, I used air dry clay for the hat and the nose. I think it worked really, really well. It was very easy to use, but you could choose to use bake on clay. I don't know exactly, but definitely look at the particular clay to see what temperature it needs to be baked at. And make sure that your tumbler can be baked at that specific temperature, because I assume that you would put it on and then bake it. Again, I don't know 100%, but definitely look into it before you start making it. If you're new here, my name is Allison and I'm so glad you're here. Every week I post a tutorial on tumblers or keychains or other crafts, as well as do a Thursday live stream. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the notifications for the next time any videos go live or my live stream starts. Do me a favor and hit me up in the comments below. Let me know if you're planning on making a gnome tumbler or if you have made a gnome tumbler, what color combinations you plan on doing, because I love this galaxy mica with black glitter, but I originally was gonna go a whole nother route. So let me know in the comments what you plan to do, and let's get started with the step-by-step. You always need to start by prepping your tumbler. It's super important that you sand it or use your crud cutter and then add your base coat. You can add your base coat right to the stainless steel. I went with purple first and then changed my mind to use this flippin' awesome midnight blue. Just make sure you let it dry however long whatever you're using needs to dry. I'm going in with the Liquid Galaxy Mica from the Crystalite Company, and I'm just going to take this blush brush and brush it right on to the surface. I will say that I'm doing it directly on the Flippin' Awesome paints, but it will glide and move just a little bit better if you have a few coats of Bright Tone down first. So it works without it, but I do recommend having a few coats first. It still looks really good over this midnight blue. I did let this dry for 4 hours. You do need to make sure that you seal it with a few coats of Bright Tone because the liquid mica won't kind of withstand on its own, so you want to add a few coats of Bright Tone over the top. I did 3 coats. Make sure you let each coat dry for 4 hours before you put on another coat. Again, just a couple coats to get it protected before you move on to adding your clay. I am using air dry clay that I got on Amazon. I have everything that I use linked down in the description box below. You're going to go ahead and just grab a chunk and start rolling it out, and you want to try to keep it as consistent as possible. You don't want it too thin, but I wouldn't worry too much about it because you can always manipulate it once you get on your cup. So you can always refold and sort of rub it between your hands and on the table just so you could get like a longer, about, I don't know, 10 inches or so log, trying to keep it consistent all the way through that log. And then you're going to add it to the cup. I do like to add a little bit of glue. I am using super tight fusion tack is what I use just to add my rhinestones. So I do like that glue, but you can use whatever you have available. You could also transfer it to that mini little glue applicator bottle if you want. So I'm using my fingers to sort of press the clay and smooth it out into the cup. This will also help it stick better as well as blend a little bit better for when it's time to add your glitter. So you're just going to position this where you want it and use your fingers to get it nice and smooth. And dip your fingers in water if you need to kind of smooth out any cracks or anything like that, but you need to know that it will dry exactly the way it looks. So if you left it like the way it looks right now, is like lumpy and gross, it would look lumpy and gross when it was dry, and it would not be hidden underneath my glitter. So take your time to get this smoothed out and ready to go. And it may take you a little bit longer, but it doesn't matter. Just take your time and then let this dry for a few days. I did also make the nose at this point too, but do not attach it yet. So just take a small little piece and roll it up. You can choose kind of what nose shape you want, right? You could do like a cute little rectangle or like an oval, but just set it aside and let it dry for a few days. You don't want to attach it yet. You'll see in this cup that I switched back to, which is a different cup, I did glue on my nose, but I'm speaking from experience that you want to wait till later. So I did go ahead and prime my cup and the clay with the universal white, just to give my paint the best chance of sticking. And then I went in with my base paint. I'm using a small brush around the rim because you just want to be careful. You don't want to get a ton of paint all over your cup. And use a base coat that matches your glitter. I mean, that's not required, but it's always helpful to have a base coat that matches. Let your Flippin' Awesome paint dry for 4 hours, or whatever paint you use, make sure you let it dry long enough. And then you can move on to adding glitter. I decided to change the route I was going and go with this black glitter. So I decided to use my my black gloss to apply the glitter. I was hoping to get away with just one coat of glitter. So I thought, oh, instead of painting this black, I'll just use my black gloss as the adhesive. Again, be careful around the edges, and another reminder to wait to attach your nose, because you'll see I got paint all over mine. It turned out just fine, but it's just easier if you wait. So while the black gloss is wet, I add in my black glitter. I'm using a holographic black. Remember, sometimes black glitters can be weird under all top coats, so make sure that you're using a holographic one with silver in it so it doesn't look gross underneath your top coat. Tap off any excess and then let this dry for 4 hours. And then after it dried, I went in with a brush to just brush off any excess, and I noticed that I had a few spots that just didn't get that well covered. And because I didn't do the best job of applying my clay either, I was hoping I could use a second coat to kind of help blend in the rim. So all I did was the top portion with glitter glue, using a damp brush to help it spread. I didn't do the whole rim, you certainly can. I was just kind of hoping I could salvage this cup, which I did end up doing. So on your wet glitter glue, you can just apply your second coat. And the good thing about the glitter glue is that it only takes 2 hours to dry. So let this dry for 2 hours. I just hang dry it, but you could put it on your cup spinner as well. And then I moved into my coats of Bright Tone. I'm going to do 4 coats of Bright Tone, and then I will wait 4 hours in between each coat. I'm using a brush for the first few coats. You can use your finger. It's totally fine. But I just wanted to make sure I could get into all sort of like the crevices of the hat. But I did use my finger to get around the rim. So make sure that you do just a few coats, letting each coat dry completely. I did put this on my cup turner after I got it covered, but you could let it hang dry. It's really a personal preference. I do prefer to spin it after I put on my Bright Tone. Once this is dry and you do 4 coats, go in with the 400 grit sandpaper. I highly recommend the Crystalac sanding pad for this just because it's an awkward shape and it really does help to have the firmness of this sanding brush, and just it's overall easier to use. So give it a light sand with 400 grit sandpaper, and then I wiped it clean with a damp paper towel. And then you can continue your coats of Bright Tone. You do want to make sure you get it fully clean. You can either rinse it or use a damp paper towel, or you can use the surface conditioner that the Crystalac company sells. All is totally fine. So you're going to repeat this and continue your coats of Bright Tone and sanding until you get a smooth surface on top. Now we're not really going to be doing more coats of Bright Tone after we put on the beard, which we're going to get to here in just 1 second. So we want to make sure that the cup is basically completely done before we move on to that step. So just keep doing your coats of Bright Tone, sanding every 3 or 4 coats with your 400 grit sandpaper until you get that smooth and glass-like finish. Make sure that you are using 400 grit sandpaper and you'll get there. I promise. There's no set number of how many layers that's going to take. Then we can move on to the beard, which is so fun. Oh, just kidding. We're going to move on to adding the nose and painting it. So I glued it on with my super tight fusion tack, and then I just painted it with a brown paint. I did a couple coats because my paint was really thin. And then we can move on to the beard, where I used a lightweight spackle from the Dollar Tree. And you can get this from any hardware store or whatever, but this one's from the Dollar Tree. I have a bowl of water, and I just sort of dip my finger in, grab some spackle, and spread it around. You can put this on in whatever shape that you want. You just know that it is a little messy, so it's kind of hard to get off once you get it on your cup, so try to be careful with where you're putting it, as well as the fact that it's going to dry exactly how you see it. Like, it's not going to change. So you want to make sure you have the coverage that you like before you let this dry. But get it fully covered. You could let it dry and then go in with a second coat if you want. But if you can, just get it all done in one sitting. And then I let this dry for like 3 days. Maybe you could do it as little as 24 hours, but I waited a few days just to make sure it was fully and completely dry. Once that is dry, you can finish up your cup with a few final coats of Bright Tone. I did want to make sure that I had the sealer over the top of the spackle just to make sure it was nice and durable. I love how it turned out. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and let me know if you try one.